Rusame reader, Song, and today I will be reading to you from Stars and Moonflowers in Our Garden by RainbowStar_772. That's me! Now on to Chapter 24, Cold Tea and Warm Tea. America walked back to his barracks, humming to himself as he did. The first thing he did when he got back was get Neeks' letter out and put it on his desk. He wanted to take another look at it before he decided how to respond. After rereading it, he took out some paper, his inkwell, and his quill. He then opened the inkwell and dipped his quill in so that he could start writing. After writing the little "Dear Neeks," he reread the letter and responded as best he could to each part. He felt concerned for Neeks, worried that by giving himself a deadline of sorts might affect him negatively, so he said as much. But he also noted his excitement to meet the other. He hoped it wouldn't make the other disregard his own comfort. Then he continued to read over what Neeks had written, responding to all of what he said accordingly. He also added questions about what he'd said, out of curiosity. He didn't notice how the time flew by as he wrote, soon finding himself done with the letter. When he was done with the letter, he found it was around the time he'd need to start readying himself to leave. Well, not exactly. It was when he preferred to get ready to leave. So he headed into the bathroom of his barracks and turned on the shower. While he waited for it to reach a proper temperature, he stripped himself of the clothes he'd chosen to garden in. They were dirty, he noted to himself, deciding that they'd be making it into his next wash. He hummed a little to himself as he hopped in and started to clean himself. He washed his hair and the rest of his body. He didn't shift, as he wouldn't have to worry about his fur for a little while longer. Once he was content with his level of cleanliness, he hopped out of the shower, turning it off, and started to dry himself. He wrapped his hair, then used a different towel to dry the rest of his body. Once his body was dry, he hung up the towel he'd used on the towel rack. He then ruffled and messed with his hair under the towel. Once he was content, he unraveled the towel and found his hair was barely even damp. He wasn't yet content with that, so he took the towel to it again. He hung the towel up beside the first one once he was content. He then walked out of the bathroom and collected everything he'd need to use for his outfit for the day. He got himself dressed and grabbed his messenger bag. He slung it over his shoulder, then prepped the envelope for the letter, writing, "From Aku to Neeks." While he waited for the ink to dry, he collected some of the dirty gardening outfit from the bathroom, putting it in the laundry basket. Then he returned to the letter and gently folded it, putting it into the envelope. He closed the envelope and decided to eat breakfast, then take the long way. He made himself some breakfast, ate, then left. During this, the letter never left his sight, always within his reach. It made him feel better about it. Sure, he'd never lost a letter, but he didn't want to make this the first time he did. He almost laughed at himself, holding on to and keeping a close eye on the letter made him feel, admittedly, a little childish. Once he was done with his meal, he started the walk to his office. He stopped by the camomiles, crouched down so that he could put the letter in the flowers. He then carefully moved them aside so that he could slip the envelope into them. Once it was in the flowers, he moved the flowers back to their original positions, healing the stems of any minor damage he may have caused. Then he got back to standing and trotted off, continuing to his office happily. He quite enjoyed these letters and enjoyed getting to know whoever went by the alias Neeks. Whoever it was, he would be happy to have them as a close friend, someone he'd like to be closer to. But for now, he was content with the letters. He hoped that Neeks was as well. He shook off the thoughts and continued his walk. Now that he'd refocused his thoughts, he realized that he was moving faster and growing closer to his office faster. Soon, he found himself in front of his office. He opened the door and almost immediately noticed the mug on his coffee table. So he walked over to investigate. He noticed that it was the tea of the variety he'd recently given to Russia. The mug looked mostly full, but it had definitely been drank from. He thought for a moment, then remembered the sound of something being placed down the other day. This must have been what Russia set down before messing with his hair. As he remembered that, he felt his face grow hot. He tried to calm himself and fanned his face as if trying to cool down. It took him a bit to completely compose himself, but he did it eventually. He then started to think about what to do with it. He settled on deciding when Russia got there. Soon enough, he heard someone come into his office and looked to see who it was. It was Russia, which was pleasant. He was always happy to see the prince around. So he happily greeted the other with a smile on his face. "Good morning, Russia. How are you?" Russia smiled a little before speaking. "I am doing well. How about you?" "I'm doing great. Thanks for asking," he said with a purr rolling off his tongue. It was almost instinctual when he was happy. He immediately felt himself fluster, but kept the blush off his face. He just hoped Russia hadn't heard it, as it'd be a bit embarrassing. Thankfully, Russia didn't mention it if he'd noticed, though America didn't think he'd heard it, as it seemed like something Russia would ask about. "Did you leave a cup of tea in here yesterday?" America asked after a moment, loosely gesturing to the cup on the coffee table. Yeah, sorry, I didn't realize I did." America hummed a little before he spoke again. "If you want, I can use some of my abilities to warm it back up." "That'd be nice, but don't waste your resources on it." Russia was cut off, assumedly because America had ignored that and already had reheated the tea and was handing him the cup. "Thank you, but you really didn't have to," Russia said, taking the mug gently before taking a sip. "Maybe not, but I wanted to," America happily replied, with a smile as he walked back over to his desk. This was something he didn't do often. His heating magic was extremely weak. He couldn't even produce fire. It also took quite a bit out of him, admittedly. So he reached into his drawer and pulled out a small tray of snacks. He grabbed one of the more energizing ones from the bunch and started to eat. He knew that it'd keep him from feeling tired. When he saw that Russia was enjoying the tea and had a smile on his face, he felt the temporary loss of energy was well worth it. He watched as the prince took a seat across from him in the chair in front of his desk. America hummed a little and thought for a moment. Admittedly, he also wanted some tea. So, instead of taking a seat, he went to making some for himself. He went with black tea and found himself comfortable with the silence that filled the room. It wasn't awkward. It was comfortable. As he thought, the more he realized that he'd failed in not catching feelings for the other in the room. He almost laughed at himself, but he didn't. He felt a little pathetic for hoping that he may have a chance with the other man. And that's the end of this chapter. I hope you enjoyed. Anyway, I'd like to invite you to join the Discord, which is linked down in the description below. That being said, I hope you have a nice rest of your day, night, or whatever it is for you. Just enjoy your time, and I will see you tomorrow.